So here we are, another live thingamajig, and we're blah, blah, blah. There's supposed to be a big thing. But we don't do that here. So I have Ashley Madison, one of my heroes. You're ringing.
That's Cliff ringing.
This is one of my heroes in the horsemanship world. This is somebody I want to be around. She's fun, she's beautiful, but she's also somebody that I want to learn from a bunch. So please introduce yourself.
Okay.
Your accolades and how many Grand Prix horses have you got?
I mean, I've probably made like 8 or 9.
Oh my God.
Over the years. Starting from different levels and things, but I mean, I've always done like young horses. I've always taken problem horses, but done it in a dressage kind of way. That was a lot of what I did when I was assistant for Scott Hassler for many years. He was the U.S. young horse coach for many years, and I worked for him for a long time. And so a lot of what I did was really talented young horses or horses that came with some issues that needed some solving, and I was always really had a knack for like peeling back the layers of the onion and trying to like figure out why horses are doing things, trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out how to fix it. So, when Cliff and I got together and started working together, it was a really natural kind of progression for me to like kind of add the horsemanship side of things to what I was doing, because all the evidence-based horsemanship stuff is pretty much what I always did. I just didn't realize that there was like a whole like thing out there that was like, that was what it was. Like I always kind of thought like a horse and did things in that way, but I didn't.
Cliff and I were talking about the evidence-based horsemanship. That's what the old timers always said. And then somebody proved it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that was always kind of how I approached stuff, was really trying to listen to the horse, putting them through asking simple questions and exercises, and trying to look at things from all the angles of why they're doing the thing that they're doing, and then trying to figure out how to be a better partner for them and explain how to fix it or how to feel good about it. So it was a pretty like natural kind of progression to incorporate a lot of the horsemanship stuff that, I do a lot more of now into that dressage kind of base. But I was like a strictly dressage girl. I mean, I never evented, I never jumped, I never grew up doing pony club. I mean, I was a dressage girl from the very beginning.
And now you ride Western, and you snub colts.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I love it. It's
deal.
Great. It's interesting and it's fun and it's rewarding, and I believe in it. So it's always cool to do something you believe in. So
I got to make 2 points here. The first is your Maynard accent is really kicking out because you're a little nervous. So just settle down. The second point is, what do you find rewarding about so like you snubbed a lot of colts for Cliff.
Yep.
Where's the reward in there? I mean I know, but
yeah. So for me, like I started a lot of young horses like in like a traditional like German or like dressage way, where like they would come in and like their whole life changed, right? Like they lived in the field, they came in and they would get like 30 days.
And start them in a stall, a bunch of them.
Yeah, sometimes we'd get on them in a stall, but it was a lot of like, in the round pen, like first you introduce the, like lunging to commands on a lunge line and voice commands, and then adding a surcingle, and then adding 1 side rein, and then adding 2 side reins, and then adding a saddle.
30 days you had like a ride?
Yeah, like towards the end of the 30 days, you'd be getting on them for the first, and I always long line a lot, so I'd always long line them, so that by the time I got on them, they knew how to walk, trot, canter on the bit. They knew voice commands. They knew how to steer. They knew how to stop. Like they knew how to be in the contact on the bit and all those things. And so then it was, they go around the indoor for a while and they get good at all those kind of things and confident. And then it was like this big deal. Like, okay, now we're going outside into the world. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so what I love about like, learning a new and in my opinion, better way to start young horses, it's just way less stressful for them. Right. So the way that Cliff does it.
Both body and mind.
Yeah. It's just, it's a little bit more intense for a short period of time, but there's everything is so logical. There's always time for the horse to process and understand. And then they, they go back out in their field, and it's like they get a little bit of information, kind of they can process, and then, it's everything that he does is efficient and designed to create good feelings in the horse and understanding in the horse. And I think drawing it out over 30 days is actually way more stressful for them, right? They come in and all of a sudden they live in a stall and they're used to, like their whole life gets turned upside down. And then it's like 5 days a week, like they like immediately get thrown right into like your normal like work program. And I think without having like little breaks in that, it's actually really hard for them to like absorb and retain the information. Whereas, we'll do 4 or 5 days and kind of get somewhere, get those first rides done. Doesn't matter if they're messy, doesn't matter. Kick them out. And then you bring them back in and they're like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah. Even if they didn't do it that good to begin with,
right?
It's familiar to them. So they're like so much more ready to just absorb that next piece of information and feel good about it. So for me, like what's rewarding about it is just seeing these horses. A lot of them come in and they're squirrely and they don't understand. They just run away from the pressure. They don't like, and then to like watch them learn and like watch the work, teach them how to process pressure and information, and like through that work, like start to see them gain understanding and trust, and then they feel confident about themselves. And I love being a part of that process.
So one of my things, and for a long time, and I've told a lot of people this, a lot of owners this, a lot of owners, I guess. I've said for a long time that the stall is part of the training.
For sure.
Because just like you were talking about, that stress.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me what you're thinking about. Like when I just say the stall is part of the training. What are your thoughts on that?
So like for me, what that means is like if I have a new horse that comes in, even if it's an educated horse, whether it's problem horse or horse that just needs to be developed in dressage, or if it's a young horse, for me, like the training starts when I walk into that stall, right? I walk into that stall and I first put my hands on the horse. I put the halter on. I see how they respond. I always do like really simple exercises in the stall before I even walk out of the stall of just, they're comfortable in that space a lot of times.
Don't you think that even, because I know how you run your barn, similar to how I run my barn, that getting fed at a certain time, getting water at a certain time, getting the stall cleaned at a certain time by a certain somebody that does things a certain way. Is that not a part of the training? Oh,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, we try not to be like too strict on the schedule that they're like, upset if it's a half an hour later or half an hour earlier, but having like learning that sense of routine that they can count on, like this thing comes next and then this is what happens. It all kind of helps them like settle in their mind to be prepared to learn whatever is coming next.
So tell me how different is it from training a Western style horse to a dressage style horse? Because like to me, I've got a pretty intimate understanding of dressage. But let's talk about what the differences are and why.
So I think it's actually, there's quite a lot that's the same. I think the broad topics, the broad goals rather that we want is the same.
Side passing, half passing, lead changes.
And just, even more broad than that, right? Like obedience to the aids, submission, relaxation, confidence, that you can separate out all the parts of their body and have a reliable, repeatable response for all of your aids individually. Like all of those things, being confident in new situations, learning how to deal with stress and pressure. And I think that's one of the big things is like with the young horses, part of what they learn is how to deal with pressure. They're going to be in pressure situations their whole life, in horse shows and out in the world. And, they don't really, when they're growing up, they don't really have to deal with a whole lot of pressure. And so that's something I think that they have to learn. Like Cliff was talking about being emotionally elastic. That's a term I love, right? Because they have to learn to like feel that pressure and not just do what feels natural, which is just run away from it.
Yeah.
Which is what they kind of do at the beginning. And
just
then you're
be
like,
bigger and stronger.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, then they calm down enough for you know, you can talk to them enough that you can say, well, the pressure's really only on your hind end. So like, think about, like when I present to you with some pressure, think about your feet, think about where that pressure is coming from and where to move your body away from that pressure. And I love that process of them starting to like slow down and understand, like, not all pressure just means run away.
Right.
Like
Right.
slow your mind down, think about where the pressure is coming from and how to respond to it. So I think in many, many ways, like the goals that we want are the same. We want a rideable horse that's available in all parts of their body.
And most of the movements are about the same.
Yep. Laterally, collecting, all the things. And that they're available and amenable to whatever you want them to do. And I think one of the big differences that I've noticed in, you know, like with riding quarter horses, Western horses, and dressage. And I noticed, you know, I learned this that we went to like a cutting clinic, right? Like they were starting horses on the flag. And I can't remember, Cliff could tell you, the guy that we were working with, but he said these young horses that had never been on the flag, your instinct when the flag moves is to like tell that horse to go follow the flag. And he was like, don't do that, right? Because if you're on a cow and you have to tell that horse to follow,
let them wash it.
You're too late, right?
Yeah.
So like you have to, so they let the flag go and then hustle that horse up to the flag and let him sit there in front of it, right? And pretty soon,
there's your break.
Right. So pretty soon that flag starts to move and that horse starts to follow it all by themselves. And he said, you know, we want these horses, they have to make decisions on their own, right? They have to see that cow move and go follow it on their own. Because if you have to tell them, you're too late. You're going to be right. And I would say that's one of the biggest differences for me in dressage is like with my horses, I don't really want them to make any decisions. I want to be like, pick your leg up this high and put it this far in front of you or this far to the side.
That's where I want them.
And I want you to keep doing that until I tell you to do something different.
All right.
Don't think.
So I've got several things here that I'm going to go with, but I want to start with that. So to me, and this is something that Amy said to me before, that you're either cussing about the horse thinks too much or doesn't think at all.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, trash horses, like, yeah, they either think too much or they don't think at all. I want them, like, read my mind. I want them to read my mind. Mm-hmm. I want you to put your foot right here. Yep. I don't want to put it here. I don't want to put it here. I don't want to put it here. I want to put it right here. And so, to me, that's training. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, they're starting colts.
Sure.
We start colts and we just get them where the pack is found. And then you start training foot placement.
Yep.
And I really think all of training is foot placement. So where you put your feet. So to me, that's really important. The other thing I was going on, I want to talk about submission. Mm-hmm. And then there was something else that you said, and I must have forgot about it. But if you would talk about, first of all, foot placement, mm-hmm. and then submission, the thing is with that is that most people think like they're thinking like gags and chains and like submission. No, submission is just I will do what you tell me to do.
I would even take it one step further, and I would say that it's a horse that wants to do it for you.
Exactly.
It's the will to do it for
exactly.
you. It's not just that they can be a robot and know that they're going to get spanked.
We don't want that because we don't want a robot.
I don't want that. I want my horses on fire underneath me. Right?
Yeah, I want hot horses too.
But I want them to be on fire and be here for me. Right? So like I want them to be like, what can I do for you?
And so I'll take this a little bit off topic. But so I'm a Christian, and so I submit to God. That idea is I do what God wants me to do. Try to. I'm not very good at it. Everybody in this room knows that. I try to do what God wants me to do, and the end result is good for me.
Right.
I think that same way for the horse.
For sure.
is that's where I'm looking for with submission. Is I want him to try to do what I want him to do, and the end result is good for him.
For sure. And sometimes they need to learn that, right? Like sometimes when you ask them to do things, or you ask them for submission, or
So they need spur in the gut.
like sometimes you have to convince them, like, I know what's better for you. I always liken it to like a coach,
It's gotta
physical therapist.
It's gotta hurt sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a coach or a physical therapist, right? Like, you know, like, so if you have an injury, I had an injury a few years back, I tore some muscles off my hip and it was really bad and really painful. And when I first started physical therapy, some of the stretches and stuff that they had me do, I was like, this is excruciating. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But I knew, and because I'm a human and I can think and speak to people and all
You
things,
can reason.
I knew that what this person was having me do, even though it was really painful for me to do it, I knew that they were having me do those things because it would make me better in the end, right? Like the end goal was that I would heal and be strong and be better. So I can rationalize, okay, this might be a little uncomfortable right now, but I know in the future it's not gonna be. It's gonna be better. The horse doesn't know that.
Right.
In that moment, they just are like, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. And so I think that it's really important to like recognize and understand that in the moment and be fair to the horse that, yeah, sometimes you have to turn the dial up on pressure a little bit or on intensity a little bit, but it always has to be for the purpose of turning that dial back down again. It can't be that you just make them be submissive all the time. That's like, for me, that's missing the point.
Right. Yeah, just make it be you know, and I use this phrase quite a bit, and it's kind of unfair because of all the donkeys I've been around. No, I've never been around a donkey that actually did what the hell he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But you don't want to make him like that donkey that just does what he's told to do.
Right. Well, and especially like in our sport, it's all about expression.
It's how
right?
they move.
I want to say these are your parameters. This is the frame or the length of your frame or your stride or the connection or whatever. And like here's the left side, here's the right side. This is the parameters. And now I want you to be as free and expressive. Like you can have all the freedom that you want within these boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people either get a bad impression of dressage, or I think you see a lot of dressage horses that are not so happy because people hold them, they keep them in that frame, in that box, and then there's no freedom in it, right? The goal is that you say, here's the boundaries. Now, I don't really want to touch you and tell you that the boundaries are there all the time. I just want you to know that they're there.
Right.
And then I want to push you to grow within those boundaries, that you feel freedom.
Well, a conversation that you and I have had before. So most dressage riders don't ride very well.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that ride well. I think there's a lot of dressage riders that don't ride well.
Okay.
But I think that's in all disciplines, right? Like,
No, of course.
and I think the goal is very relevant to that.
What I'm going with that is that we've got a majority of dressage riders that don't, and ride well is not the right word. They don't feel a horse correctly.
For sure.
And so they're doing what you just said, is they're trying to just hold them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where dressage gets a really bad name, is that you've got a whole bunch of, for better or for worse, we've got a whole bunch of chicks out there that are just trying to hold them in there, and they don't use their hands right, they don't use their... Once they start using their hands, they don't use their legs, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think a lot of people get into dressage because, I mean, I think a lot of dressage riders are like type A control freaks, right? And you think, okay, I want to control all the things. I want to control the frame and do all the fancy movements and all the things. And then
it's horse ballet.
And it's like this dirty trick that like the more that you learn, the more if you can be really good at it, it's really about giving up control. It's about setting those boundaries and then giving the horse freedom to move within those boundaries.
That's the coolest idea.
I mean, that's how it should be.
That really is the coolest idea, is like set everything up and then just...
I want them to dance.
Give it away.
Yeah.
Give it away. as you were saying that, so I'm looking at a Goya print there, and like I love Capian bulls. To me, there's nothing better than Capian bull, and it's the same idea. Set everything up, and then just see how it works. Just see if it works right, and if it doesn't work right, like if you're Capian a bull, you get hooked.
Right.
If you're riding a dressage horse, you don't get the points.
Right.
You know, we ride some rent cow horses and this and that. Same deal. You set it up, give them the best option they've got, and if it doesn't work, well, then you don't get judged correctly. But if you hold them together, if you hold them all the way through it,
Yeah, for me, you're missing the point. It's not the point.
yeah,
For me, dressage, it's about harmony and partnership. I mean, I have my Grand Prix horse is now 25 years old. He just turned 25. And, you know, I had him his whole life and I trained him for better or worse. I screwed him up 1,000 times and learned how to fix him. But, you know, when he was a Grand Prix horse, I could think for something to happen, it would happen.
right.
Because he wanted to, because he knew exactly what I wanted, because he wanted to put that effort in and he would just dance with me, right?
Right.
And for me, like that's the beautiful part of dressage is that it's that harmony and that partnership. It's not, if you're making your horse do all the things, for me, you're missing the point of dressage.
So let's talk about what you just said there. You screwed him up 1,000 times and fixed
Oh,
it.
for sure. Yeah.
So I was told years and years and years ago by one of the best horsemen I've ever met, the only way to learn anything is to fix something or to mess something up so badly that you don't know how to fix it. And then you have to figure out how to fix it.
Sure. Yeah. 100%. I mean, that horse, you know, like if you ever watch cooking shows, they say like, show me you on a plate, right? Like, what is your like style of food and
Yeah.
how you comprise the plate and all the things, compose the plate. And like for me, that horse is me on a plate, for better or worse, right? Like he, with all of his faults, all of my faults. I mean, when I got him, I had like one lesson a week. He was my first warm blood. He was my first young horse. I had a paint before him. And, he ended up being my first FEI horse and my first Grand Prix horse. And he was patient.
First. Guys, the first one she tried, she made an FIE Grand Prix horse.
But, he was patient and tolerant enough to not like really put me in the dirt and say, no, you're a stupid kid, you're doing it wrong, right? But he was talented enough and smart enough that when I figured it out, he was like right there and it was good. And I was like, I need to figure out how to do that. Like, what the hell did I just do to get that? I want more of that, right? And he would give me these little glimmers. When he was like 5 years old, he had like 10 different trots. The horse could never trot. He had a terrible trot. And like, he had to like learn how to trot, And then randomly I'd be going around and he was like sort of on the bit, sort of straight, all the things. And then all of a sudden he'd go, and I was like, oh shit.
Where's that?
What did I just do to get that? Yeah. Right, but it made me hungry to figure it out. So I figured it out. I learned how to do it, and same thing. He had a injury to talk, minor, like a strain, when he was 5, and I was a working student at Hilltop at the time, and so I didn't have anything to ride. So I watched a whole bunch, and I'm looking out there, and I'm like, none of these people are moving their hands.
Yeah.
And they're all going around, their horses are on the bit, and nobody's moving their hands, and I gotta move my hands. And so when he started coming back from his injury, all I could do was tack walk him, right? Like, he had to walk for a month, whatever, and, start building up again. And so, I'm like, all right, I've been watching everybody for a month. Nobody moves their hands. I move my hands. I'm gonna figure out how to get this sucker on the bit without moving my hands. And you guys talked earlier about like ego and stuff, right? Like, it's hard to be in a big fancy place when everybody looks perfect all the time, and you feel like, oh my god, I gotta make it look perfect. But dressage is messy. If you're trying to make it look perfect all the time, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
you have to let the horse make mistakes and then coach them how to do it right, and then let them make the mistake again. Otherwise, you always have to do it for them, right?
Which is the whole point of the sport is, it's a military deal. And the whole point of the sport is this mother needs to get me into battle and out of battle. And so I can go home and kiss my wife and kids. That's the whole point of the sport.
Sure.
And so like cow horse and roping and other things like that, like, I missed. I didn't get him turned, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, there's a lot to it. But dressage to me is the purest form of horsemanship, because the whole idea is I go into battle, I come back.
Yep.
The stakes are way higher.
Yeah.
It's Xenophon, it's Cyrus the Great, it's way out there. So like you were just saying, I don't want to handle him. And then this kind of goes into what Cliff and I were talking about earlier. Like, I want that horse to ignore my failings where I'm wrong, because I'm gonna be wrong. I want that horse to work for me anyway.
Sure.
And so, like, how do you train that? How do you train them to let you be wrong? Just by being wrong?
So what I would say is a couple things. So thing one that I go back to all the time, really, in training is Ivan Pavlov Stugs.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's, for me, dressage is very simple. It's not easy.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can make dressage very, very complicated, and some people do. And it can be, but for me, as far as the training process, it's very simple, basic stimulus response. It's like a flow chart, right? Stimulus, response, praise.
Okay.
Stimulus, lack of response, correct. Response, praise, repeat stimulus.
Okay.
Right? And so I would say how you train that, like most of what I do is just training responses. Right? So the first thing when I get on a colt, when even older horses that come to us that have problems or just need to be trained, the first thing I do is ask them if they can take one
Good Lord, there's a potload of dogs around here.
one step. Like if I put my right leg on at the halt, I want them to move their right hind first. 99.9%
for
of horses will move their left front. Right? So like that's the first question I ask, because I want them to attach in their brain my right leg to their right hind leg engaging. So we talk about that, and I don't really go on until until that's a good answer for me.
And to me, so like, I'm a colt starter, so left hind or inside hind is what I always want to move first. That's basically my first 30 days. I steer them around and I do this and that, and they whoa and they back up and this and that. But the inside hind leg is that's all my groundwork. Like everything I do is about inside hind leg. And you're right. The right front is the first leg that's going to move.
Right.
Always.
Unless you coach it not to.
Unless you coach it.
Hey, I actually want this one to move first. And that's, for me, the beginning of connecting the hind legs to the bridle, to the bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have to engage the inside hind leg without making, like if they're like this, right? It goes like this. So you have to say, keep this here and engage this closer. And that's the first time that is a concept in their brain.
So tell me about this, because the world is filled with connecting their hind legs to their bridle, and especially our world,
Inside hind to outside, inside leg to outside rein.
Right. And especially the Western world with these 2-bit bridle men that claim they're spay bit men, and a real dressage horse is a spay bit horse. Didn't I ride your? Yeah, I rode Ashley's Grand Prix horse in a spay bit just because I could, just cause. and he went spinning. He went to dressage stuff just because he knew how to move his feet around, which is the point. So in this world of connect their brain to their bit, connect their feet to their bit, like show me how that works.
So for me, like as an English world person, right, you hear inside leg to outside rein, right? People hear that their whole life. And it wasn't until, I don't know, not that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that I really like in my brain, and I didn't really ever like stop and think about that, right? Like what that means. But to me, it was like push with your inside leg and like get it in your outside rein.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all.
Just hold it.
For me, it's the energy from the horse's inside hind leg pushes the outside bit ring forward.
Inside, let me think about this for a second. Inside hind leg pushes the outside
bit ring.
So the bar. Okay. And that's
energy coming.
That's where they tip their nose.
So even just straight, just in a straight line. The energy from the inside hind leg pushes forward up through the horse's wither. So like it lifts through their inside rib cage, pushes up over their outside wither, and carries forward over their top line and takes the outside bit ring forward. Like fills up your outside rein with energy.
What do you mean by fills up?
Like, so when I ride, I always want to have a sense of the horse freely moving forward and taking the bit forward. I never want them to feel like the bit blocks them or like stop.
Pushing the bit.
I want them to take the bit. I want them to like take and push into the bit and then push onto the bit.
Right.
Like
right.
lifting through their top line, right?
Time out. Spade bit enthusiasts, that's what we actually want a spade bit horse to do, is to push on the bit. It's dressage. We don't want them to back off the bit. Proceed. I'm sorry.
So that's how I want to feel. So for me, inside leg to outside rein is their inside hind leg. The energy from their inside hind leg pushes and stabilizes the outside bit ring. So like if I want to hold this phone against the wall, right? I have to have the exact right amount of pressure.
Yeah.
Pushing the phone up against the wall.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't fall, right? So the wall is the bit.
Okay.
And and my hand is creating the energy that stabilizes the horse to the bit.
There has to be contact.
Initially. But when they learn that this is how the energy cycles and travels through their body, and you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. Like think of like, in the science museum, there's like a little electric bolt that goes between two places, right? So for me, like it's getting them to connect to that point.
That is so much more sophisticated than I've ever got.
But it's the energy that stabilizes the contact.
I understand what you're saying. It's just way more sophisticated. Because like if I can get them to push on the bit, like I'm happy.
So why I say initially you need contact, I would say, and Cliff would probably back me up, is one of the things that he said the first time he came to my farm. He said, this is the first set of dressage horses that I can like pitch my reins away and they still do all the things. Because it's getting the energy, training it to cycle through their top line, but the hand is just creating that connecting point. It's your seat and your leg that shifts the balance.
It's just the
connecting point.
Yeah.
So I say I'm a really big analogy person, if you haven't noticed. So have you ever walked down like a really steep set of attic stairs?
Sure.
Right? So if you're going down a really, like, your grandma's house, a really steep set of stairs, and there's a railing next to you, and that railing is made out of pool noodles, right?
Okay.
You're gonna walk down the stairs, right? Like this. Right? Like limiting your range of motion, right? Like keeping your balance. Because you know that in the moment that you might need it to not fall, it's not going to do much for you. It might provide a little bit of stability.
Yeah.
Or you might be able to like put tension on it and like a half a second later it'll help you stabilize, but it's not really gonna help you. So picture going down the same set of stairs with a big fat like that wooden railing next to you. You're gonna rest your hand on it and march down those stairs, right? You're gonna expand your range of motion, right? And you're gonna have more confidence.
And that's where your tension is.
The bit is the railing.
You just broke the world. Like that is amazing.
So what I try to do is I try to create that stable point, because horses, from the time they drop on the ground in nature, they use their neck to balance.
Sure.
Then we get on them and we say, don't use your neck to balance.
No.
And that's super hard for most
now
horses.
use your ass.
And it creates anxiety, right? Because they don't want to fall down because then you get eaten, right? And so for me, the bit is, it's there for them to say, connect to this. It will help you find your balance. It's not to lean on it. It's not, but it's to help you have that piece where you can connect and reach up over your top line and stabilize your body, that it's there the moment that they need it. If it's unstable, if it's moving, or if it's like the pool noodle, when they reach out to say, okay, I need to connect to it, or I need to push into it a little bit to help myself balance. If it's unstable, they're not going to go to it and connect to it. They're going to keep themselves a little bit further back, which means that what they're doing is they're reserving the right to use their neck, throw their neck up into canter position, or, move their neck left or move their neck right if they lose their balance somewhere, right? Because they're not confident that you're going to be able to provide that stability and help them when they need it. So they keep just behind it so they can keep using their neck as they need to.
So, this throws me into a whirlwind of ideas, like literally a whirlwind of ideas. So now let's talk about palate pressure. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying, the way I'm hearing it, is that we're kind of going for that, right?
So I don't fully understand the question, but like, I don't ever want to put pressure back or down on the bars of their mouth.
No, I'm talking about the palate.
Right. On the top of their mouth, right? So, so explain your question more, because that I don't really understand what you mean. You're going for palate pressure, but, a lot of times we have a sample,
we're not going for palate pressure necessarily, but the idea that there is palate pressure there is something that helps that horse find a place to balance?
Not necessarily, because most of the time I have like a 3-piece like curved to the mouth snaffle that lays really flat in their mouth. So there really isn't any palate pressure.
Yeah, and not a French ring.
So what I would say is that it's much more about creating acceptance to that place. I would say you create that stable place. That doesn't mean that you're never going to have to help the horse soften or find softness or whatever. So I try never to put pressure back or down on their mouth, right? Because anytime you have directly competing energy, you have resistance, right? So like their energy is going forward. If you take the bit and pull back this way on the jaw of their mouth, you have directly competing energy, right? Yeah. You're bringing the bit this way, they're going that way. You end up with the resistance. So what I try to do is I will lift my rein, so like lift the bit up into the corner of their mouth to shape it, or I will lift and open the rein and add like inside leg to like lift and shape that. But what I want is them to accept through their top line that stability in the contact. And if you don't have energy pushing the bit forward, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can only pull back.
It's one of the few things or you're one of the few dressage riders I've noticed, and then it's a great thing to bring up, is so generally in dressage, you're riding right here. I'm kind of holding this up for the camera.
Oh, yeah. But you're almost down. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're riding right here. But what I've noticed about you is you'll ride here and here and here and here and do a lot of stuff like Western riders and utilize all the mechanics of even in single jointed snaffle bit.
Yeah.
You'll utilize all the mechanics of it. So one of the things I've seen in English riders is I don't know if the camera can see it or not. I look like a dork, right here, and you'll ride a lot more open. And that was one of the things you were just saying, is that you don't give that horse a place to brace on your hands. There's no place to brace here. Like I can go anywhere.
Yep. Well,
And I always want to preserve the sense of the energy flowing like forward through their top line and like coming
out into like receiving it in my hands this way.
Yeah.
I never want to feel like my hands do this.
Because you do want to push on it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But when they're in self-carriage, they become super light.
Oh,
But the energy is still pushing that way. So like even at Piaf, the energy goes that way. It never just sits underneath you, for me.
So help me to understand. I understand, but help the world to understand what you mean by the energy is always pushing forward. The energy is never under you. It's always going forward.
Right.
It's never pushing in your hands. What does that mean?
So for me, it's always like there's the same amount of energy in an extended trot and a Piaf.
It's just how it's coming out.
Tell everybody what a Piaf is.
Trot in place, when they trot in place. So you're just like, one is more reach than lift. The other is more lift than reach. But you have 100% of this horse's energy available to you all the time. And so how well you ride your half halts, right? So for me, I never really taught them like, oh, this is the aid to passage, or this is the aid to Piaf.
I teach them every time I half halt, you decrease reach and add
Lift, right?
And add energy.
Yeah. Well,
Do we?
No. So for me, I really feel like they should have enough energy available underneath you all the time to do whatever you want.
Okay.
Like I shouldn't have to add energy to make
Yeah.
a good Piaf.
they should already, if they don't have that much energy underneath you to begin with, then, you know, it's probably not a good enough collective trot, right? Like,
Okay.
so like,
Fair enough.
I want them to have that energy available, and then it's for me to dictate how it comes out. It's come out in an extended trot,
Trot, a medium trot, a collected trot, a passage, or Piaf.
and so for me, the way that I do that is each time I half halt, for me, the half halt rocks the energy back. It loads more weight on the hind end. It elevates the chest, right?
Right? And adds lift. So if I'm in a collected trot and I want a passage,
I half halt, rock them back.
and add lift. If I want to go all the way back to Piaf, I just half halt, right? Because that same energy should just keep coming no matter what. Like there should never decrease the amount of energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Perfect. To me, it does. So let's downgrade this a whole bunch to just a broke horse. So
Same. Meaning like
Just like a just broke horse, like a green horse.
No, I mean like a mother-in-law horse, just a horse.
what do you mean?
There's a million horses I've rode, not a million, but there's hundreds of thousands of horses that I've rode that I've said, it's just a horse. So what about for that? Just a horse.
I would say
That still has a job. He or she is not so foul that we eat them. We do eat them.
so. I would do the same, right? I want the same things. Maybe not that it can go all
All
the
the
way.
way to Piaf and all the way to extended trot.
Yeah, but
I want a half halt
just
that
to
rebalances.
ride around this place.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
ride around here.
I want a half halt that rebalances the horse.
because for me, that's always like
The preparation
for whatever comes next. Or if a lot of people, you know, they're like, oh, my horse is super heavy, or they get really quick. And it's not that the horse wants to get really quick, and it's not that they're hard in the mouth. It's that their rectangle has become a parallelogram, right? So for me, do you know what I mean by that? Okay.
You're gonna have to explain that a little bit.
So, you know, if you chop off their neck and you have a horse standing square, they're a rectangle, right?
Okay.
They're in balance, standing square, not moving. Most horses, when they get quick or they want to go too fast or they get really strong
In the bridle, it's because their rectangle has become a parallelogram.
So I'm gonna go with Charles DeCuffney. Here he said horses don't buck, they get fast and they get crooked.
100%.
So same deal.
Yeah. So like when I think about a half halt, what I want is I want to shift that horse back onto its hindquarters so it's back in balance with its I want its chest to come up like this and not be leaning forward through its chest where it's making its feet having to catch up with its body balance tipping forward like the snowball down the hill.
Yeah.
Right. And then their feet have to keep going faster to catch up with their body balance. So even if it's a horse that's going out on the trail or whatever job it has, I want to install and create an aid that says,
Make your parallelogram
a rectangle again, right? For whatever reason. It might mean that you need to jump something and they're going really fast and they're losing balance and pushing down on their chest. You want to be able to say, hey, sit up again. We're going to have to jump something, or we need to make a transition, or we're going to have to stop soon, or we're going to have to turn soon, right? Like I want that horse to learn to travel in balance in their body all the time. So it's not realistic to think that they're going to just travel in balance in their body. They have this big, giant, heavy head and neck coming out in front of them, and they have energy and motion. So of course it's going to start to tip forward, right?
Yeah.
So I always want to make sure that whatever the horse's job is, that I have the ability, usually from just my seat and my pelvis and my weight, to like drop my elbows, tuck my pelvis, and say, bring your chest up a little bit, get balanced again, right? So I would say for those horses, it really, maybe the degree that or the standard that I'm asking for is different than a horse that would be doing dressage, but I want the same things. I want a horse that I can turn and stop, and I can move their hips, and I can move their shoulders, and I can move their neck, and I can move their middle piece, all independent of one another or together. And I want a horse that I can rebalance.
So my last question, and this is gonna kind of, I don't know. I know you pretty well, so you're probably just gonna blow this away. So I'm thinking about a horse in Nevada, Arizona, California, Idaho, that you step on him, you trot 20, 30 miles. And by the end of the day, that horse is tired. He's kind of leaning on the bit. We talked about the head and the neck. And so now I need you. Come here. Do we do it with hurt? Or do we do it with signals?
I would say conditioning, right? So like part of why it takes so long to make a Grand Prix horse is because it takes a really long time to get them strong enough. Carrying themselves here. It's not natural for them to carry themselves here. You can trick train a very young horse to trot in place, to elevated trot, Spanish trot, passage, whatever. You can trick train a horse to do pirouettes and tempi changes and all the things, right? Like there's plenty of circus horses that do all those things that are not Grand Prix horses. What takes the time is the systematic loading and conditioning of those muscles, so that horse that you go on a 20 or 30 mile ride, that horse should be trained and conditioned and fit enough, carrying themselves through systematic building up of those muscles.
Beautiful.
To be able to maintain that balance.
I couldn't not have answered that more beautifully myself. That's fantastic. So my last question, I said that was the last question. My last question. So how should we start these babies?
What do you mean? Like in general?
Well, so like we're all kind of on board on this whole deal, but we slowly start them. And Cliff and I, we've stepped on 100,000 head that just stepped aboard and went to work, and 2 days later we went to work. And I think you maybe have too.
Sure.
But I know you've, like, to make a good one. Like,
so my preferred option.
How should we do this?
Yeah, so I would say
The way that my little stallion has been raised was, for me, like, he has had the ideal childhood.
So as a yearling, Cliff came, he did trailer loading stuff. He learned to hobble. He ground drove him with a surcingle and a rope halter. He ponied him off of his mare. He learned how to control his hormones. He learned all the basic groundwork, and then he got kicked back out. And then as a 2-year-old, I think he had maybe 4 sessions, like May, July, September, November. Session 1 was refresher from his yearling year as a 2-year-old. And I think by the last day, we put a saddle on him and just let him wear it around. Second session, refresher, saddle on, learning to do the groundwork, having somebody step on and step off, step on and step off, pony him around a little bit at the walk. Then he got kicked back out in the field for 2 months. Came in, third session was 4 or 5 days, started with the saddle on the first day, ponied a little bit the second day, third day, carried a rider around the round pen 5 minutes. And then last day went for a little walk around, just outside the round pen, kicked him back out. Fourth session, started in the round pen, day 2 with a rider, day 3 walking out around the farm, day 4 free in the big arena walk track canter. He got kicked out for 6 months over the winter, didn't get looked at, just lived out in the field. Came back in the spring of his 3-year-old year, put a saddle on him day 1, bucked around 2 minutes, stepped on and rode him, and off we went. And his whole entire 3 to 4.5, he never had a bit in his mouth. I rode him in a loping hack. He didn't have a dressage saddle on. He'll be 5. He's 5 in April this year. So he's just about 5 now. And he didn't have a dressage saddle on or a bit in his mouth until last winter.
So, with that all said, it was going to be my last question, but I lied. So with that all said, do you see the way we do things in the Western world? We start them at 18 months. Best case scenario, we do it the way I do, kick them around, couple rides, turn them out, bring them back, blah, blah, blah. A lot like the way you did it, but just way shorter deals. Worst case scenario, they're futurity horses. We kick them around a few rides and then just go train them. What's your argument there?
So I think with all the futurity stuff and the incentives and supporting breeders, for me, I think in a perfect world, it would be nice for all horses to have a childhood like my horses had a childhood. He spent his first year with our, interns, ranch kids, jumping on him, ponying horses off of him, going out hacking, just learning to enjoy being ridden without too much. He has his whole life to go around the sandbox. And he's no further behind. I mean, he's had very little dressage training. Mm-hmm. And he is so further ahead than so many dressage horses his age, because he was trained to move his hips and move his shoulders and find his balance and feel confident and all the things. So I think in a perfect world, I would love to see Western horses have a little more time. I think it's a lot for when they're 2 years old to be in a real pro. I mean, they're like children,
Yeah, they're
for me,
babies.
they're so small. And I think, because it takes a long time to make a dressage horse, you have to take a long time to train them to get to the top levels. In the Western things, they can be doing a pretty high level at a very young age.
At 3 years old, yeah.
Right. And I think so it kind of incentivizes this, getting them out there a little earlier, getting them a little bit more experience, and it's a lot for them. And I think it's why you see a lot of these horses that are not, I had a couple of years ago.
That's why they're trashed.
Exactly.
When they're 7 years old,
I had a couple of years ago, I had 3 Grand Prix horses that were serviceably sound in my barn that had been in my care for almost 10 years that were all 22 years old.
Yeah.
Super proud of that, right? It takes a lot of management, but none of those horses weren't drilled. They weren't run into the ground.
Right.
And they certainly weren't doing things at that level when they were very young. And so I think, I would love to see that shift in the Western world, that it's, that they can have a little bit more time to be children, not so much pressure put on them, because I think then you would see overall greater horses
No,
a lot longer.
I
Why
agree
wouldn't
with-
you
I
want
agree
to
with
have
you.
your horse a long time and have it be sound if you invest so much in it.
I agree with you. We've got the sway-backed horse that, you know, he's 19, I think we decided. 20. You know, he's old. He's sway-back. But shoot, I'd step on him right now and go rope something. Go do whatever I need to do. Do anything. But he wasn't started until he was 6.
Right.
And I'm not a big proponent of that, especially in the quarter horse world. And then he had nothing until he was 6.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that with dressage, we're talking about, we do a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
He was just wrong. But, and I'm not cool with that for the most part, because once they're older, they can hurt themselves worse.
Sure.
And those babies can't hurt themselves. Okay.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, I don't have any problem with starting them young.
No, I don't
Right?
either.
And introducing things and all that. And there's actually a lot of studies to show that, like, you know, light exercise, appropriate exercise increases bone density,
Bone
right?
density,
Like,
yeah.
this is a big deal. So it's not that I'm opposed to that. There's a big difference in like what Benny had as a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the type of impact
Sure.
work and all that kind of stuff, mentally and physically, that like was important for me. Like, he has his whole life to be going around the sandbox and being a dressage horse. I want him to have a childhood, and I want him to be able to do other shit.
Well, and I'm with you on the, like, because I'm a 2-year-old man, and I'm an 18-month-old kind of a guy. Like, get him started, get him going. I'm a sturdy guy, yada yada yada. But like, I love those horses. They aren't. I don't even want them around until they're 10.
Yeah.
You know, when they're 17, 18, 19 years old, that's when they're good to have around. That's when you like them. So like,
Yeah.
like your old horse that I rode in Florida, what's he like, 18?
Donnie's 25.
He's 25?
He's 25
That's a
now.
big, double tough, neat horse. That's a cool horse. And just like learn stuff, like boom, 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 boom. I put a spade bit in his mouth and just rode him around, and he was like, for a moment.
It must have been, was it Eddie?
It was Eddie.
It was Eddie.
It was,
Eddie.
yeah, whatever that is. Great big horse.
My big horse, yeah.
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 Like he moved it around for a minute, and then like it was less than 30 minutes, and he was turning around like a cow horse, and just and I kept saying like actually I don't want to do this. I don't want to mess up your Grand Prix horse, and exactly
You can't.
that's exactly what you said. You said you can't. He's broke. You can't screw him up.
I had someone.
He's just gonna learn something else.
Like, because a lot of top trainers, they won't let people ride their horses. I let every little ranch kid crawl on that nice stallion.
As if they're broke, they're good.
Because
Who cares?
Well, and here's the thing: if you can't fix what somebody screwed up on your horse within 2 rides, at most, really 1, you haven't done. You haven't done your training yet. You haven't
So-
done your job.
Here we are, 2 colt starters and a real horse trainer.
Preschool and high school.
Yeah, I don't want you to get on my colt. No, but you're absolutely right.
You know.
I've only trained a handful of horses. I've started a bajillion colts. I've trained a handful of horses, and you're right. Like, if they're right, they're right. It doesn't matter.
And even if they get somebody does something, they get a little frazzled or they get confused, whatever, you
can
should be able to
fix it.
get back on that horse and be like, hey,
If you did your work,
forget that shit. Remember all
all the shit you know, and they're like, okay, cool,
exactly.
and that should be it.
All right, so do your thing. Tell people what you do, who you are.
What?
Plug yourself.
Oh no, I don't.
I'm Ashley, and everybody loves us.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
and we kind of do clinics sometimes, and we train some horses
Things
We do clinics. We train horses. You know.
occasionally. Yeah,
we do fun shit. We do dressage. We do all the things.
and she's beautiful,
Oh.
and she's my friend,
Yellowwood Dressage.
and she's a good cook. Anything else?
We're pretty fun at parties, I feel like.
Cut it.
I don't know.
Shit.